hustler, unbreakable, a people's person, and a future billionaire. This is the Hustler's Corner with Busi Mkhumbuzi, well known to you and I as DJ Sbu.
Hello everyone, this is DJ Sbu. Welcome to the Hustler's Corner. You guys know, it's a Hustler's Corner. We get to bring hustlers that are getting things done, that are making things happen out there. And right now we are in Johannesburg in South Africa, Sandton, and we're hanging out with another hustler who's making things happen, and we're just going to go through their journey. Who are they? What do they come from? Some of the challenges they've had to encounter. And the main purpose of what we're doing, in case you're new on the channel, would like for you to please press those likes, share the video, subscribe onto the channel. The main purpose is just to inspire you and to also show you that we're all from nothing. Actually, even us are worse off because we come from -0. And as we get into the ground, other people have had a head start. And these are people from other races. So specifically, people I'm talking to here are people who are just like me. And I do know everybody else gets to watch. We appreciate you. But this is a channel that is predominantly speaking to black people. Would like to welcome you to the show. It's not really a show, but I mean something very, very informal. Yeah, I'd like for you to introduce yourself to the audience and exactly what do you do?
Okay, so I'm Busi Mkhumbuzi Pooe now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I am a 24-year-old.
24?
24.
Wow. Okay.
Overwhelming.
Okay, never mind. Yeah.
Born and bred in Soweto. I grew up as the third daughter of 1976 student activists. And you know, from a young age, I've just been a very bubbly child, a very conscious child, very aware of the surroundings. I always tell people that I had the privilege to go to schools in suburbs in Indonesia when I was in primary school and in Parktown when I was in high school. And it was that daily commute from township to suburb where
you live in the one life,
confronted by the contrast.
And the other life,
you know, it's so different from other people. Wow, look at these houses. Look at you know, kids being fetched from school by Abazali and the kind of extramurals people have access to. And for me, that's when I started to interact with the fact that inequality is really not black and white. It's nuanced. It has color. It has meaning. It has faces. So I've always been able to just humanize about within you know, politics and within just social life.
Yeah.
For me, it's never been the rich and the poor. It's been Yamina, like this is my family, my friends. I've identified personally with being on, you know, the dark end of this dichotomy, the inequality, and I don't know, I've just been an activist all of my life.
Activist?
Activist.
Okay, in what scene? Like,
I mean, I remember the first time I was told I'm an activist.
Yeah.
And that's who I was like, what does that mean? And I remember searching and trying to find the word. But essentially, I used to have after-school programs for kids. I used to teach them English. I teach them stress to this day.
Yeah.
When I come through to see my parents, like, no, me stress. And, you know, I used to put up posters. We'd put up plays. We'd put up music shows. We'd raise money. We'd do Mother's Day and Father's Day events.
So you're an active kid?
You know, a very active kid. By the time I was 16 years old, my mom wasn't going to work.
And this is now, by the way, after World Cup 2012.
After World, I mean, it was during the time of the World Cup, because I remember I wrote a play about the World Cup.
Oh, yeah.
And that play was like a sensation. Like, we did so well. And it was also the year when my mom stopped working. And now she couldn't pay my fees anymore. So now, you know, I'd always felt like, okay, inequality, but I'm going to be safe because my mom can pay for my education.
Yeah.
And when that was taken away and it became an issue of, okay, go from the Kasi. Like my principal, I remember she called me into the office and I really knew she was going to say, you need to change schools.
And this is in Soweto, right?
I mean, this is in Parktown. But I knew she was going to say, you have
go
to
back
go
to a
school.
class.
So because you can't pay the fees. So we're in Sunshine. And it was that year when we were doing that play, about 2010, called Strike, where a lady spotted me while I was acting, a lady called Gina Schmatla. And she invited me to audition for a play called I'm an Emotional Teacher.
Okay, can you please run that again? Where did she spot you?
At it was a play festival, high school play festival called
Raps.
So it was kids was a Lukshini, but acting. I think it was Wits Theatre.
Okay.
It was Wits Theatre.
Yeah.
And she said, come audition for a play called I'm an Emotional Creature by this American playwright and activist, Eve Ensler. And I was like, okay. Opportunity to make money and pay my fees. Apparently, we're going to get paid like thousands weekly. And I was just like, let's get it. And I remember auditioning and I was like, okay, I need to pay my fees. And I got to the final round of auditions where they were being adjudicated by herself, Eve Ensler. And I walk in and she's asking me questions about where do you come from. She's asking me questions about the play, strike, and this and that. And she says to me, you know, I don't think you're an actress. I don't think you're an actress at all. I think you're going to change the world. And I'm like,
wow,
okay. I need the job.
Yeah.
I was so stressed. I mean, I got home and I cried. And my dad was like, you don't understand now what you're going to understand in a couple of years, how important what she said to you was.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to wait for a couple of years. It was the same year when she essentially gave us funding to create a for girls, by girls movement called V-Girls. We were essentially anti-violence activists. We were talking about issues around domestic violence, child rights, women rights. And I remember the work we're doing was so successful that it was immediately being replicated by girls across the world. There were girls in Israel.
Wow. Were you guys using social media?
Mexico, social media, doing the work that we're doing. And I was invited to speak at TedWomen.
One of the TED Talks,
in 2011, around that. And at that event, I remember that's the first time someone said, you're an activist, you're a global activist. And I was like, what is an activist? And that's the first time I called myself one. That's the first time my childhood began to make sense. And the things that happened, like mama not being able to work anymore, suddenly all these things that seemed like failures, misgivings, things that embarrassed me, that I was afraid of owning, made sense. Why it was like, okay, this is why I needed the context. I needed it because this is the phase I'm moving into in my life.
So pretty much that experience sort of changed the direction at which your life was going.
Yeah.
Because it opened you up to something you're not exposed to. And then what happened in the journey after that?
I mean, that TED stage opened a world of possibilities for me, right? I met Hillary Clinton. I met Jane Fonda. I mean, I got an invitation to come to the Oxford University for the Education 2020 summits that they were holding when I was in matric. I got to go to the One Young World summits in Dublin in 2014. You know, I got
some of my students went there as well.
I met him that year. We're such good friends. We still have each other on all social media.
Lovely.
And I mean, I got to do so many things after then. I got a PwC scholarship to go to UCT. I got a Michael and Susan Dell scholarship. A world of opportunities open.
See, I love what you're saying. Sorry to disturb you. You know, I was watching the Wimbledon tennis. I'm a very big fan of tennis. Now, there's a new lady youngster, 15-year-old, who beat Venus Williams on the first round. Now, Mama Felicia Mabuza Sato posted on Twitter an image of this 15-year-old, because I was watching the match and she was interviewed after the match, and she did say that if it wasn't for the Williams sisters, as a black girl coming from you know what I mean, to dream. And I guess you were that 15-year-old at some point where you got this experience to just like and then you were like, people saw. Wow. And what happened afterwards? What did you take your career?
I mean, I was doing a lot of work even when I was in varsity, but I remember when I was in varsity, it was a particularly challenging time for me because it was the time roads must fall and fees must fall. And I remember during that time, I mean, I think the situation at UCT was particularly exceptional because UCT is almost like the bastion of white privilege. Like UCT, you know, UCT is white privilege. And I feel like there are people doing important work at the institution right now, rewriting its story, but like for a long time, at least, you know.
So you were at UCT?
I was at UCT.
So you're with my little brother, Urorosang Mused.
We're actually like probably top 5 close friends.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow, he's very intelligent. He's very, very bright. He's my little brother.
We're actually studying the same degree. during Fees Must Fall, in fact, he was president of SRC.
Yeah.
But I was coming from more of an activist background in the sense that I wasn't in SRC, but I was lobbying from the activist movement. And I remember it was a particularly difficult time for all of us. But it was also the year I got suspended from UCT. And I remember that changed my story in like a number of ways, because I was this perfect kid, you know, in the sense that I've always done well in school. I've always been the kid helping other kids do well in school. I've always been, you know, the kid who is doing international travels. People had high hopes and scholarships, and now she's suspended during the Fees Must Fall scuffles between students and the institution. And I remember being really depressed because it was my final year, and I was almost done with my PPE degree. But it was also the year when I was privileged to get an opportunity to be part of a program called SAWIP, the South Africa Washington International Program. And I just come from 6 weeks in Washington, D.C., where I was interning at the National Black Caucus of State Legislatures on the Hill. And I was like, my life can only get better from here. But I could see that the pressure was mounting in a particular way in the university, and there was no way this degree was going to like happen in 2016. And by the time I was suspended, I was so depressed and so ashamed and so confused as to, is this how the story ends? And I remember spending a lot of time being like utterly depressed. Because
it could have not ended then. It could still be on now, because there's still Fees Must Fall students that are still locked up now.
Yes.
And this is how many years later?
It's 4 years later, right? And I mean, for me, I remember getting to a turning point one day where I just asked myself if I'm going to be alive or not. I think that's the turning point for me. And when I say this to a couple of people, I know they always say, Busi, don't downplay depression. And I always say to them, I'm not downplaying depression. I experienced the full might of depression. What I'm saying is depression is not a friend. So I think a lot of young people, what we tend to do is we say things like, I am depressed, oh, my depression today. Or
and you are just giving it to the universe,
We're owning the depression.
And then you're basically digging yourself deeper into the rabbit hole. Yeah.
You're literally owning it, like it's becoming an extension of you. And I got to a point where I was like, actually, this thing is not my friend. This thing this thing wants to kill me. This thing is an entity. This thing has its own life.
You, just taunting you, you know?
Exactly.
And,
and I was like, this is exactly. I see.
Yeah, I see Mahambala. As my mom would be.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's literally how we need to approach depression.
Yeah.
I literally woke up one morning and I was like, I am not depressed. I am experiencing depression. Depression is an entity, and I want to be alive. I want to be free. I think I made a choice that day, and I to this day I believe in the power of choice, the power of agency, because that was the continuation of the story. That was the day when I started feeling okay, and I became part of Tshimong, a company that at the time was being spearheaded by Pooe, my husband, and his best friend Bongani Masilela.
Yeah.
And what they were doing literally was so simple. They were two very accomplished Wits student leadership debating giants who decided that they're going to approach government and corporates, get them to give funding for them to create youth development platforms around debating in various communities.
Yeah.
And it worked. It really worked. I mean, we had Ekurhuleni being probably one, I think the first client that was that adopted this whole thing. And then you had APSA coming in, and APSA buying into our vision from day one, buying into the power of debating as a discursive tool to get people to talk about issues that are uncomfortable, that are contentious, issues that we shy away from, but also to get young people to realize that they have a very important voice, particularly poor young people. I come from a community where...
Because we grew up poor.
Exactly, we grew up poor, you know. I think about the kind of community I come from, and the fact that in my group of friends, at the time we say about 11, I was the only one with a father. And we don't think those things matter, but those things are crucial because that means 11 households potentially didn't have provision.
Can you imagine? And when I say can you imagine, I'm even talking about other people who are not exposed to our type of upbringing and where we come from. Because obviously the whole world is watching this. You got some people from somewhere and they're like, is that normal? Yes, it's normal where we grew up because of different circumstances that might have happened, right? AIDS issues, crime, prison, etc. And we just come from dislocated communities because of where the history of our country comes from, the apartheid, you know, and the system that was intentionally designed to oppress us. So a lot of these things that keep happening, the solution is not for me to be a motivational speaker and stand on stage and say, you guys are lazy, just stand up and get it. How are they going to go make it happen when the system is designed to not get them where they're supposed to get to, you know? So that's where we come from. So you must understand the context at which we are coming. Because other people don't understand, they don't get it. They're like, no, why don't they work hard? How though? Because there's a system that's just oppressing them, you know? Just like you and I.
I always say to people, before you even think of saying that matrix coming from poor communities should work harder, consider the fact that they attend school the earliest, they leave the latest, they attend the most extramural activities, extracurricular rather, and yet they still don't do as well as a kid who's in St. John's or Rodin. That requires a deeper interrogation as to what's happening structurally. And that's why I'm an activist and I'm not a, I don't know, motivational speaker or whatever it is that you know, people feel is the solution.
What is an activist?
For me, an activist is someone who identifies systems that are oppressive, whether it be racism, whether it be patriarchy, whether it be institutional structures in universities that are making it difficult for students to get their degrees, and it's saying, well, there's a system at play. What is the historical context around the system? How do I mobilize action to dismantle the system? Because then you're understanding that a poverty of one person in a township is not something that is exceptional because they don't work hard. What's the structural system around it? What's the history of the migrant labor system? You spoke about it so articulately just now. It's understanding those issues and mobilizing for change at a large scale, as opposed to someone who simply wants to make a difference in one child's life. I always say, if you want to give kids bursaries, good for you. But understand that the economy that same child with the bursary is going into might not even be able to absorb them because there's a structural issue at play. So the structural issue is something that needs engagement, and that's why I'm a big fan of activism and of embodying activism in the work that we do, whether we're entrepreneurs or engineers or corporates or governments. I believe that we need to embody the spirit of mobilizing for action against specific structures that are oppressing people.
Somebody was saying we've got events that we do every once a month. We get entrepreneurs together and just to network. We call them Sunday Circle. I was speaking this past Sunday, and my narrative this past Sunday was more, I think I spoke more on, I wouldn't say black consciousness, but more on self-love as opposed to more on entrepreneurship. And some people in the audience kind of felt, why didn't you touch more on entrepreneurship and the solutions, etc.? And I kind of felt I had to start on the base because you guys need to understand why we have to get into business. We're not getting into business just for money. We're in a different country, in a different situation where we are the problem solvers as entrepreneurs, because big business is not going to create the jobs that the government is claiming to create over the next couple of whatever. But small business all across the world is the one that employs the majority of its country. And I don't think our government sees that, or they're taking that small business ministry seriously to understand the role that it can play in transforming the country. So that's why people like myself, when I speak, I'll speak about that, and I'll also be honest. And so I'm also going through my own spiritual journey where somebody was asking me in the audience, like, yes, but I grew up as Christian, and I no longer I'm no longer Christian anymore. I don't belong to any religion. They were like, but why? But you believe there is a God? And then I was like, it's because of the things that I'm finding out. I've just been traveling. I've been to Ethiopia, I've been to Egypt, and some of the things that one is finding out and rereading scripture has gotten me to question myself and step outside of myself and be like, whoa, let me unlearn some things and let me relearn to properly understand who I am before I can build it. Because I'm actually in a process where If I meet the wonderful person in my life, I'm going to build a family. But am I going to build a family with the knowledge that I've had all along? Or am I going to build a family as somebody who understands the bigger picture? So I love what you're saying, because activism is that important, where somebody like myself can say, yeah, it's better, at least even if I'm changing one life. But hey, you can actually change more than one life. When I keep saying to people, I'm building wealth because I want to change millions of people. I don't want to just change hundreds. I've done that. But I want to continue changing people, and I believe the best way where one can be able to make a huge impact is either through government, influencing policy, or through doing it on your own by creating wealth where you can help as much as you want.
We're huge believers in that, you know, and I consider myself lucky in particular for the husband I have, because I know when I met him, I mean, he was so mature, his foresight. He had always been saying that he believes that his life is going to basically culminate into three things. One, he's going to build business, and he's going to amass wealth through business, and then he's going to build influence in the media, and that influence is going to change how people perceive themselves, but also how Black people are centered within pop culture. And then he's going to go into the sphere of government, and at that point he's going to influence policy. And he said these are the three most important pillars of society, and if you don't, I mean it's like listening to you right now, I'm just like, whoa, like
we're the same people.
You're literally the same people, you know what I mean? And that's why he's probably gravitated towards you all his life. But I mean, just thinking about what you just said about why it's so important that we get into business. I had no intention to get into business in my life before the unfortunate suspension happened. And to me, that what that says to me is that sometimes we need to get into a space of deep and like discomfort, where what we thought we knew, what we thought was the best thing for us, is just literally shattered, like torn apart, taken apart. And it's that space of vulnerability where you have to redefine yourself, that you realize what the important things are in life. I mean, I thought I'm going to be a management consultant, I'm going to work in I'm going to slave for some brand, and I'm going to be a CEO of some business, of some company one day. And then right now I look at what I'm doing. I look at the fact that it's in that moment of vulnerability when I didn't have the degree to hide behind. I don't have the management consulting company to hide behind. I have to create my own value. I have to be Busi outside of institutions, and I have to define myself in a way that can inevitably become even attractive for those very institutions that rejected me all those years ago. And you know, building Tshimong, and now into the organization that it is right now.
And let's get into that, Tshimong. You know, let's talk about what does Tshimong do, and what is your guys' vision?
So we started off essentially being like debating evangelists, in the sense that we were getting kids across the country to think critically about issues that seem boring or uninteresting, issues like, you know, our struggle heroes, and what is the relevance of their legacy right now in our in current leadership, or state-owned enterprises, or you know, queerness and homophobia, things that young people think are not things that they need to go into depth into thinking about. And we get them to think extensively about those issues, debate them competitively, because you're playing into that competitive nature of children, and ultimately get them to become change agents. And we've worked with over 3,500 youth across the country with many different organizations. But we grew so much in the last 3 years that we were like, okay, what are we going to do in the world now that we've seen that, you know, we have value and we can get a client to buy literally anything. I always tell people that if we could get a bank like ABSA to buy debating, we can sell anything. So now the world is our oyster, and how do we redefine ourselves as entrepreneurs? And what we decided to do basically is to create these 3 autonomous units that exist independently of each other, but within the same banner of serving young people within a market model, because we believe that the future of all kinds of leadership and transformation in the continent is going to be business. And we have 3 units. We have education. Education is looking at how do we reimagine the way teaching and learning happens in the classroom to improve outcomes, particularly for those who don't have. And that's being run by Bongani Masilela, who's in Shanghai right now, on a 2-month internship at an organization that's doing similar work in Shanghai, so that we can bring it back, and we have that international sort of perspective in the solution that we're building, because global solutions are actually quite important.
Yeah.
And then we have media, which is being run by my husband Tani, and essentially what he's doing is creating platforms, whether it be podcasting platforms like the Interchange that we're doing with APSA, or platforms on YoTV, platforms on TV and radio all across, where we're trying to essentially deepen conversations between people, where it's like conversations haven't been happening optimally. If they were, there'd be more social cohesion. What needs to happen from a television level and a radio level in terms of the way that we have conversations and the way that we bring important stakeholders to have conversations to change the way that people understand themselves and understand society. And then the social investments, and that's what I do. Essentially, I partner with SMEs, I partner with wealthy individuals, I partner with companies, with PBOs, international philanthropic organizations, and I say to them, what are you doing with your 1% net profits in terms of CSI? Where they do have something existing, I offer consulting from a strategic point of view to help increase their impact. I also offer fund management for trusts. And if they don't have any CSI that they're currently doing, I essentially design programs that are in line with who they are as an organization. I then execute and I report back to the board in a way that measures the impact that organization is having in society. And it's quite an important sector. Lots of people don't understand the work that I do, and I love that, because it shows the amount of opportunity within the space. CSI is a 9 billion rand sector.
I know that.
Just in 2018.
Yeah.
That's how much money just corporates are spending in giving back. That's not counting SMEs, that's not counting wealthy individuals, that's not counting philanthropy. That's just companies, the big 50, giving back 1% of their net profits. And they give back in various ways. But many of those ways aren't transformative. And why I say that is because I believe that 9 billion rand a year invested in communities has the potential to change society.
Yeah.
And why it's not doing that is because, are we doing enough community engagement before we implement our solutions? Are we doing enough engagement around how these solutions are sustainable in the future? Are we playing into the natural skills of the people that we're trying to empower? But also, do we see ourselves as trying to empower them on a long term? So I'm playing into the space, and basically I'm sitting at the table and saying, how do we restructure this 9 billion rand sector a year to turn it into something that we can truly leverage as a tool to change society.
And look back in 10 years and say, this is what the 100 billion did. Because it's 100 billion.
It's 100 billion in 10 years.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's a massive sector. And it's a closed sector.
It's a very closed sector. I mean,
it's very difficult to get in.
We're in the same space. I mean, I've been running an education foundation for many years, and for us to transform from the non-profit, which is SLEF, and let me not say transform, we still have the non-profit, and we do work in high schools. But then for us to form Leadership 2020, a for-profit company, was for the very same reason. To go to government, to go to these corporates, to go to the JSE, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and say exactly what you're saying to them. And be like, this is what we can do for you. I'm glad that that's exactly what you're doing. Because it's very imperative, and more people, especially younger people who are smarter and who are not like our older generation, are taking the bait and they are running with it. And I love that. But I mean, how are you able to focus on all of that at just 24, when 24-year-olds, I know when I was 25, as much as I was already making money, traveling everywhere in my career, but I was having a lot of fun. You know?
It helps that I haven't been that person, you know, at any point in my life. So it would be disingenuous anyway to like tap into it. I don't believe in living life in a way that creates consequences for the future. Like, I know people say things like live it up and like you'll be fine, whatever. Like, we only have 120s, I guess, whatever. But for me, it's like I don't want to live my 30s fixing messes that I could have, you know, been fine and well off without. And I think I've always been that person, like, you know, I party, I love partying, I have fun, you know, I'm on social media. I just don't think it's the most important thing to be doing in your 20s.
Yeah, and everything is always okay done when it's done in moderation.
I really feel like the opportunities I have right now in my life, opportunities I'm never gonna have again.
Yeah.
I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for Forbes Africa to say you're the youngest in the business category.
Yes,
it's an opportunity you're not going to have as 30-year-old. You can't be in the under 30. And you certainly can't be the youngest in the other 30.
Yeah, and
So,
you are
know
the
what
youngest you'll ever be right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
So the kind of gains
You're the youngest
I'm
you'll
able to
ever
leverage. Yeah. So it's like, and a lot of people are speaking to us within CSI.
Know what the youth is thinking.
Exactly.
You are the pulse of the youth.
I'm the pulse of the youth. And I'm living out that brand excellently, and it's like for lots of people that's the value. So for me, I'm even nervous to turn 25, for example. I'm just like, I don't want to turn 25. So for me, it's like the opportunity is really now. And I can't wait to be 35 and like having fun in Monaco or chasing the sunset at a black coffee concert.
Yeah.
But like for me right now,
just like
I want to create the world that allows me to do that. And I want to create it sustainably in a way that
The Hustler's Corner